This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Mac and Jack Saturday Debate Show with your friends, Mac and Jamie Pags, the Philly sports guy, and me, Paul Semendinger. We're here to talk lots and lots and lots of sports today. Many great topics. If you missed the Dr. Sem show at 7 a.m., what were you doing? You missed it. All right, but it's still on YouTube and everywhere on the Northeast Streaming Sports network of great programs. So go back and watch that. I'll make the argument that Greg Nettles belongs in the Hall of Fame. You'll watch that 30 minutes and you'll say at the end, like, wow, it's true. Dr. Sem has never been wrong. We were just debating that before the show, so I think we've all been wrong plenty of times. But anyway, we're a week away from the Super Bowl, Pags. Hey, excited? What's going on?
I am all super excited already. Obviously it can't get here fast enough for me. It cannot get here fast enough. And it's interesting because I just ate a fortune cookie from, I had Chinese last night, and it says spectacular accomplishment is never preceded by less than spectacular preparation. And I feel like that's not only true for me, but the entire Philadelphia city and, the Eagles organization. So I think that's just straight out. This game's already over. We've won.
Oh my God! Here's Pags taking his knowledge from fortune cookies and stuff like that. Listen, as you all know, I did pick the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl way back in the beginning of the year. But
he didn't. He said the Giants. So let's be for real.
That was my.
He said that the Giants were going to win the Super Bowl. So I don't want to hear. He didn't say anything about the Chiefs. He didn't even know that the Chiefs existed. It's okay. Again, this is a New York bap. Normally I would get this from Jack, but now today it's Mac.
Pags. That was my fun pick. That was a pick that nobody thought the Giants had a chance. So I threw that out there. And of course, if you listen to the show, my pick was really the Chiefs. And I mean, the 49ers, my bad, the 49ers. So the 49ers against the Chiefs with the 49ers winning it. So I am not all the way right here. But one of my teams are still in the hunt, and they're going to win Sunday.
Hey, Pags, let's bring up the almost impossible in your mind. Let's say the Chiefs win. How do you feel about the season that the Eagles had? Is it going to end with a disappointment? Do you feel like, we made it to the Super Bowl, not quite good enough? Or do you say, you know what, I'm happy they made it and we'll go get them again next year? Like, where's your head as we prepare for this last week before the Super Bowl? Is it all or nothing, or is there a medium ground somewhere?
It's really an all or nothing here. It really is an all or nothing. You have to win. When you get here, you have to win it. Obviously, getting here is exciting, and losing this is does it make it a failure of a season? No, but you definitely want to be a part of what's going on. So there's a tremendous amount of expectation here that's got to occur. And I think that this team is ready to take it on. They've
been amazing. They've been amazing, and I think they've really shut up their critics, no doubt about that. I was not able to see the game last week. I taped it. Of course, I was not, well, I don't know if of course, but as a guy who's a New York guy, I was rooting for the 49ers. Why not? But I taped it and I said, I'll watch it. I don't want to know what happens. But last Sunday, I was at a Hershey Bears hockey game. And, I kept looking up at the scoreboard. In the back, they had the Eagles score in a little corner of the scoreboard. And I saw it was 7-0 Eagles. And I'm like, all right, this could be a good game. Then I saw it was 7-7. And I said, this is kind of good. I don't want to keep looking, but if it's going to be close, I'll watch it. And then as the game went on, the hockey game, and I kept looking over my shoulder, 14-7, 21-7, 28. I guess I'm not going to watch it. It's not worth watching a blowout. So the Eagles have silenced their critics. They've been great. Do you think that they're a match for the Kansas City Chiefs, who are also a very good team, a great team with a great quarterback, maybe the best quarterback in the league?
Well, I would say I'm not sure that the Chiefs are a match for the Eagles. It's really been, when you look back at things and you see how things have really been, it's I think that the Eagles are the most complete team out there. I think that the Chiefs have done very well this year. They've have a very prolific offense. I don't think that their defense is the same. I feel that we beat the best defense in the league last week, and I think this is going to be a higher scoring game. I think that the Chiefs are going to get theirs. They do have a great quarterback. They do have great weapons, such as Kelsey, and I think that you can't stop them. You can only help to contain them some. They're going to get their points. It's just that Kelsey can't do everything. He cannot be the only one that scores points. I know that you have Schuster Smith, I think is what his name is, or the ex Steeler receiver, and I mean he's okay, but we contained him before, so I think that there's a lot to be said with how these teams are going to go at one another, and it's going to be a very interesting game. I think that this is I say that most of these games are won in the trenches, and I feel that this is going to be no different. That however the offensive line versus the defensive line, I think that when you think about how these teams score points, right now, if you include the playoffs, they are equal in points. They've both scored the same exact amount of points all year long. So it's going to be how the defenses, and specifically how the defensive lines, can get pressure on the quarterbacks to have the quarterbacks make mistakes.
Mac, what do you think? What do you a little week out preview of the Super Bowl? Do you think it's going to be close? You think the Eagles are going to dominate? Do you think it's a Chiefs game? What do you think?
Well, I think it's going to be a very close game. Mahomes will probably be more limited than normal with his ankle, even though it's gotten better. I think Jalen Hurts will be a big key factor running with the ball because the Chiefs get most of their pressure from way inside. They got the big guys inside that stop the run, and they do get pressure up the middle. So they're going to have to find a way to keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket and make him beat him with his arm. Listen, I hate to admit it. I think Pags is right. I think the Eagles win this in a very close game. But the Chiefs got a shot. I mean, when you got Mahomes, you always got a shot, Doc.
Absolutely. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. It's obviously a week away, and we've got lots of sports talks that are really looking at the future and the past and all sorts of great topics. Our good friend, as Rick said, where's Jack? Jack's missing this week. He's got other things to do, and, he'll be back with us next week. But let's jump right into the debate question. Here's a great one. Mac developed these questions, and each one, boy, it's tough to even – this first one, exactly. I don't know how you even choose, but let's say you have a team and you're going to the Super Bowl and you have the chance to have as your quarterback for the big game at their peak. Would you rather have Tom Brady or would you rather have Joe Montana? Wow. Joe Montana or Tom Brady, probably the two greatest Super Bowl quarterbacks, but which one was better at their peak? So who wants to take a stab at that first? Who wants to go?
Let Mac go first.
All right, thanks.
All right, Mac, here you go.
I think that you would take either one, right? I mean, either one of those in the Super Bowl, you'd feel good about being your starting quarterback. I think at their peak, and I guess your peak for Brady would be when he had the undefeated team, right? When he had, he had everything working for him. He was throwing the ball beautifully. He wasn't the Brady of old that was just handing the ball off and managing the game. He had that great receiver with him. I'm trying to remember his name right now. I got a brain freeze. Number 84. He used to play for the Vikings.
Randy Moss.
Yes, Randy Moss. Thanks, Pags. He had
but Randy Moss didn't win a ring.
No, he didn't.
No, they lost that game.
Yeah, they did to the Giants. But anyway,
I wasn't sure if you remembered that.
Yes. and he had Gronk, and he had a good run. And the running game was pretty prolific, and he was throwing everything on timing. Montana was one of the first ones to use the West Coast offense under Bill Walsh. And him to Jerry Rice was an unbelievable tandem there. Jerry Rice was fast, smooth, ran great routes, and Montana would throw the ball even before Jerry Rice would get all the way through his route. So they had some timing there that was unbelievable. So if I had to pick for one Super Bowl game, I would go with Joe Montana. And as I said, Brady, I would go with too. But for that one Super Bowl at their peak, I would pick Joe Montana.
What do you think, Pags?
It really is a tougher question than you think. Only because, when you're talking about one game, one specific game, obviously Joe Montana was undefeated in Super Bowls, but he didn't go to every Super Bowl every year that he was in it. So it's, everybody says, okay, well, he lost, if he lost in the conference championship or if he lost in the playoffs, he lost in the playoffs plenty. So it's just he's undefeated in Super Bowls. And Tom made it to those Super Bowls, 10 times. Montana only made it to 4. So when I think about those types of things and I think about all of the wins that occurred, whether it was Brady of old, where he was the manager, or Brady of late, where he was more prolific with passing, I'd have to say that I would trust Brady a touch more than I would Joe Montana. And not that Joe Montana, not that it's that would be a great problem to have if I had both quarterbacks available to win one game. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to competing against each other. I kind of feel that it would be, that would be about, you'd almost have to go like 100 games against each other, where I think that Brady would win 53, 54 of them.
I tend to agree. I think you made the big point there. There's lies and darn lies and statistics, right? And so the statistic is Joe Montana never lost a Super Bowl. That's true, but he didn't get to 10 of them, and he lost games along the way. So you know what? Sure, you never lost a Super Bowl, but you did lose big games. That doesn't mean you would have never lost a Super Bowl if you were in 10 of them. 2 of those losses, and the one of them was the one Mac was talking about that Brady lost. That wasn't lost because of Brady. David Tyree makes the world's greatest catch in the history of forever, catching a ball against his helmet. If he doesn't make that catch, the Giants don't win. The couple of years later, I think it was Manningham who made a crazy catch that was just almost as crazy. And if he doesn't make that catch, the Giants don't win. So granted, if there's not an interception at the goal line, maybe
if there wasn't an NFC East, NFC East, because a little bit later, the Eagles, they said he was a backup. They said he was a backup, but he wasn't a backup. He was the starting quarterback for the entire playoffs. So, however, that's the joke. He was a backup quarterback. Also had one of the, like I said, that is it at that time, and I don't know if it's been broken or not, there was more yards in that game than there was in every other NFL game ever played. That's a
So,
big
Well,
deal.
yeah, I think the point is that in going head to head, I think it would be a close game. Tom Brady was a master at the 2-minute offense, the 1-minute offense, figuring it out, even when he was not as gifted athletically because he was old, as Mac was saying, the manager, right? He managed the games. I would rather have the ball in Tom Brady's hands with 2 minutes to play in a close game where one score can make the difference, probably than Joe Montana. But you know what? Give me Joe
See,
Montana
now you're
99%
asking a
of the time.
you're asking a different question there.
I don't think so,
You're
because it's who
asking a
would you rather
different
have
question.
quarterback the game? I think they're gonna. I think if
Yeah,
those
but
two were to
no,
play each
see
other, it's
now
gonna be down to
when
the
you're
wire.
talking about an entire game, that's why I say that you'd have to have them play. You couldn't even do it off of 10 times. You'd have to have them play like 100 times. And that's where I think Brady would win 53, 54 of them. That means that, Joe Montana is winning 46, 47.
Correct. And
When it
losing
comes down
because
to the
Brady
last 2
marches them down
minutes.
in the last 2 minutes. There you go.
Well, no,
you
but
know,
but the last 2 minutes
you talk
again,
about
you got the catch. You
you
got
talk
you got
about you talk
a
about.
lot
Yeah,
of
I was
different
just going to
parts.
say that. You talk about last 2 minutes. Montana was a master of that too. Since college, he did it. He did it for Notre Dame when he came up. He did it for the 49ers too. I think you guys are forgetting a few things here. One, Brady was an unbelievable team. Not that the 49ers weren't as unbelievable, but the Patriots were on a team. The Patriots dominated the AFC for almost 20 years, guys. Where Montana didn't stay that long with the 49ers. He moved on to Cleveland and almost won. He almost won
Kansas
the
City.
championships, Kansas City, sorry. And he almost won championships there with them. So that's the only reason why I go with Montana. I think Montana, because of what he did for the time he was with the 49ers, would be the quarterback he would go with. Again, so close. It's like a hair different than Brady.
Yeah,
So
and
let's keep
I like I
talking.
said, you
Okay,
could
go
go
on.
either way. You could go either way with that. I just like I said, when you talk about the last 2 minutes of a game, solely the last 2 minutes of the game, I would actually give the nod more to Joe Montana. Just because he was he was able, and I've watched him do it. He was able to figure it out. And I agree with you, Rick. I do not believe that Brady had more weapons. I think Joe Montana definitely had a better team around him. And I think that, he had a better system around him. I mean, really, Joe Montana was really the very first system quarterback. Because that
Let's
it
just
was the
let's
West
just
Coast
also.
offense.
Who's the greatest wide receiver in the history of the game?
Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice. All right, and Joe Montana had him to throw to, so Tom Brady didn't.
In fact, other than Randy Moss, you have a hard time. Like I could name you a couple of the receivers that they had, but if you name a receiver on the team that they won those first couple of Super Bowls, it's hard for me to remember a receiver's name who they had when they beat the Eagles in 2004. You know what I mean? I don't know who
Edelman?
was the receiver.
Was Edelman on
No,
that
they
team?
had
Wes
no.
Welker?
I remember it was like the tight ends. The tight ends were doing good. I
Gronk?
think it was like
Was he there?
Hernandez. Gronk
Yeah,
wasn't
I was
there
just
Oh,
yet.
going
It
to
was
right.
say that.
Hernandez.
I was just going to
And
say
that's
that.
it.
I mean, isn't Gronk one of the greatest tight ends in history? Joe Montana didn't have one of the greatest tight ends in history.
He
And
did have a
No,
great
and
tight end. Who was
he
that
did have
tight
a
end?
great tight end.
Yes.
And it's that name's going to befuddle me
I'll
here
find
a
it.
minute. But I mean,
I
he had Roger
I don't
Craig,
think
and then he had Ricky Wooders. I mean, there was a lot of different players on that team that
I think
actually were able to catch the ball. And hold on, he threw the catch to a tight
Dwight
end.
Clark, right?
Dwight
Dwight
Clark
Clark
to
was
a tight end.
Dwight Clark.
Yeah, so
Dwight
come
Clark
on
was
now. It's
Dwight Clark.
you were saying way too much.
Pags. Dwight Clark was a wide receiver. He wasn't a tight end.
Right. But Dwight Clark,
Yeah.
was a tight end.
No, he was a wide
He's
receiver.
not a wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm telling you. He's a wide receiver.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Bill just called it out though. He looked it up and said, "Oh, he's a tight end."
I think
No,
he's
he was
looking
a
it up
wide
now.
receiver. Nope,
Yeah.
he was a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Who was the tight
Mac
end
is
there?
correct. What do you think about Melissa's answer that Montana played in a rougher league, and so that made him, I guess, by insinuation, a better quarterback? What do you think of that?
I agree. Montana had his ribs broke by Leonard Marshall. He got knocked out of the game by Jim Burt when they played the Giants those 2 times in the Super Bowl. I mean, the championship. Uh, you know, a lot of the quarterback change rules is because of Brady. You hit him in the knee, you hit him in the, you hit him in the head, you hit him anywhere. I think they can only hit him between the chest and the belly now, without it being a penalty. And it was just a tougher league back then. So listen again, very small edge to Montana, and Brady was be an excellent second choice.
All right, so let's keep talking about great quarterbacks. There are 4 right now, at least on this list here, but I think it's a pretty good list here, where you're talking about probably the best 4 young quarterbacks in the game. If you could take any one of them to be your quarterback going forward, would you take Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, or Josh Allen? Which of those 4 would you take? I'll go first on this one, and then I'll let you guys argue this out. Without a doubt, for me, I'd take Patrick Mahomes. He's the guy who's won the most out of that group. He has been a consistent winner. He finds different ways to do it. Burrows, I like Joe Burrow. I think he's great. It seems like Cincinnati falls short for whatever reason. Even though they beat the Chiefs, they weren't able to do it last week. I think Mahomes is probably a better quarterback than him. Josh Allen hasn't ever been able to win the big game. And Jalen Hurts, I think the jury's still out on. He looks great. He's doing great. But I don't think you could say at this point that his career has matched up to Patrick Mahomes. Hurts could be great next year. He could be average next year. He could be very good. And I don't think that even makes him measure up to Patrick Mahomes. So if I had to take my pick out of those 4, I'd go Mahomes 1, Burrow 2. Maybe I pick Jalen Hurts because he got his team to the Super Bowl this year and he's looking great. And Josh Allen 4. Again, Josh Allen hasn't been able to win the big game, and I think at some point you've got to get your team to the big game. He hasn't done it yet, so that's mine. What do you guys think?
What do you got, Pags?
Actually, I want you to go because I'm looking something up really fast.
Okay. Me, I would take Joe Burrows first because in 3 years he's been to the Super Bowl once. As you said, he's beaten Mahomes, so I like that matchup. I think you got to beat the best to be the best. Then I would go Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Josh Allen. Josh Allen has got to learn to run the ball more smart. I mean, he can't be trying to run people over. He can't be trying to he's got to learn to slide and get out of bounds. I know that's what makes him a great quarterback, because he wants to win so bad he's willing to do anything. But that can be his downfall. He can get hurt and he might be, his career may end earlier than the other ones. So my top 4 would be, again, Burrows, followed by Mahomes, Hurts, and then Josh Allen.
We agree at least Josh Allen's number 4, and we agree that Hurts is number 3, and then it's just a matter of you and I disagreeing at 1 and 2, Mahomes or Joe Burrow. Now, I have a sense that Melissa and Pags are going to be on the same page here, but let's find out because this is it's tough when it's your player, right? It's if someone said to me, who do you want to play right field for the Yankees? You want Mookie Betts or Aaron Judge? It's hard to go, well, I'd rather Mookie Betts because Judge is our guy, right? So it's tough to say, well, out of that list, I wouldn't want Jalen Hurts because he's the guy. He's already doing it in Philadelphia. But let's see. What do you got, Pags?
So in my case here, I love Jalen Hurts, and we're talking about right this very second, how I feel like if I had my option to start a franchise with the quarterbacks on that list, my first choice would probably be Joe Burrow. I just I'm really uh, since the first game in this league, I watched that guy, and like I said, and I was pretty forthwith about the fact that out of everybody in this playoffs this year, the one guy who made me nervous was Joe Burrow. Because the guy just, you cannot seem to bet against him. The guy just does not seem to lose. Now, of course, he lost to the Chiefs. So it's like, there goes that argument, kind of. But that being said, I I mean, I like Patrick Mahomes. I think that he has uh he's a great quarterback, and he's done something that not many quarterbacks have done. In the last 5 years, he's going to his third Super Bowl. So that's and he's won it. He's won it, once, obviously, and he's 1-1. And you could really say that it wasn't him that caused the problems for losing that second Super Bowl, because he was throwing it, like, even though he had turf toe and he was playing with a concussion, he was still throwing the ball, and hitting people in the helmet, and hitting them in the hands, and they were dropping balls. So there's a lot that goes into winning a Super Bowl. It takes an entire team, and the team wasn't around him that day. He wasn't. He was playing his mind out of his mind, and he didn't have the rest of the guys around him doing the same thing. I would definitely take Jalen Hurts number 3. I think that I agree with you saying that Allen has a big um, problem. Like, he's got a lot of Brett Favre in him. You know, Stupid mistakes sometimes. Throwing the balls and going crazy sometimes is just not. You know, you need to be able to be a lot more consistent. I think he's got the body, and he's able to run and do those types of things and get those extra yards, a la, like, when I think of John Elway running for that first down where he got crushed, in the Super Bowl. Like, I think that Josh Allen has got that in him, and I think he's got a big time arm. I think that he just, like, chances sometimes, a la Brett Favre. And I think that sometimes those chances come back to bite you. And that's why they haven't made it to the promised land. He has to hone it in a little bit. He's just got to make it happen a little bit differently. Short of that, but that would be my list. Joe Burrows, I would say Mahomes for right the second. Jalen Hurts is always improving. If you ask me this next year, and Jalen Hurts is taking us to win our second Super Bowl in a row, I'm going to change my thought process, in a big, big way. But as of right this very second, I feel that that's where the tier would be for me.
Would you guys change your mind if Buffalo ended up beating Kansas City in that Super Bowl? I mean,
In
in the
that championship game.
championship, when it wasn't Allen's fault that they didn't that they decided to return that ball instead of taking it out at the 20-yard line or 25-yard line. So if Josh Allen did win that championship, would that change your opinion?
I think that's always the big. I think we're sort of saying the same thing when it came to um, Brady and Montana, right? It really ends up, a lot of these things happen outside of your ability to control the game, the other team. I mean, there was that game, and we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers in a minute, when Rodgers, and we've argued this overtime rule before, but Rodgers led I think it was against the Cardinals, 2 unbelievable drives, 2 Hail Marys or whatever. They they tie the game in the last second, and then the Cardinals go off and score, and the Packers never even get a chance to touch the Super Bowl a number of years ago. They don't even get a chance to touch the ball, and they lose the game, whatever that was, the NFC Championship. I forget exactly, but like, they lost that game. It wasn't Rodgers' fault. They lost the game. He got them to overtime. He just never got a chance to touch the ball. So I think that happens sometimes. And all we can do is look at the end result. And yeah, no, it wasn't Josh Allen's fault they lost that game, but there have been plenty of games when he's done things he to end up having his team lose, right? They ultimately they haven't won those big games. And I think until they do, you're going to be the guy who hasn't been able to get past the other two great quarterbacks in your league, which is Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed. And I think that that's part of there's a number of different factors that get involved in that. You know what I mean? Again, I think that some of it's the team, but like specifically, I felt that Allen was the reason why they lost the game against Cincinnati. You know what I mean? I think that he was trying to do too much. I think that he was gunslinging a little bit, and ultimately he wasn't able to get it done against Cincinnati. And that's why we had a redo of the AFC Championship from last year.
Well, would you agree that Josh Allen is the toughest quarterback of four?
Oh, I think that's a hard question. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, you see him running around on one foot and leading his team to victory. Yeah,
and then I see Joe Burrow get
crushed, right?
Crushed, sacked 8 times a game last year, and still made it to the Super Bowl where he got sacked like 9 times. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's and still was within a score. So I mean, I've watched that guy just get beat up and just brush it off and get back in the huddle and do it. So I mean, as far as toughness goes, it's hard to really measure that in a realistic way between the three of them. I think they've all got that toughness that's comparable to each other.
I wish Jack were here today because it almost had like, who was tougher, Ali or Frazier? I mean, how do you measure that? I mean, they're both tough. Obviously, they both took beatings and they both kept getting up, right? Like, how do you say which one's tougher?
And like I actually have an answer to that. I feel like it would have been Frazier that you would say is the tougher one, and I feel like again that Ali was very good at using a system that helped him retain his titles a lot of the time. Ali was very good at wearing somebody down by having his hand in the back of your head and putting your head down. You're always fighting his hand when you get tied up, and that wears you down over 12 rounds, 15 rounds, whatever it was that they did during back then. So where Joe was just a puncher, he was a puncher. He was going to beat you up, but he didn't always win those fights, obviously, or else he would have won all 3 of the fights against Ali. So, I mean, those are the things that I think about that in terms of the toughness. It's not that Ali wasn't tough either. So don't let me say, oh, well, he was a pansy because that's the way he fought. No, he wasn't a pansy by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't want anybody like putting words into my mouth. But I think that, if you compare the two, I think that Frazier was the tougher of the two.
I think Ali had a stronger will than a lot of boxers. A lot of times he really wasn't in his best physical condition when he fought. I mean, he took a lot of things for granted. I mean, even when Joe Frazier almost knocked him out, he got back up and almost knocked Frazier out. I mean, he came in, he started wailing on Frazier at the end. And of course, in the second fight, I think maybe it was the third fight, one of the fights, Frazier didn't come out again. He's the first time he ever gave up in the corner. So Ali was sneaky tough. He wasn't, he wasn't the big brawler that everybody's, the tough guys were like. He was sneaky tough. So, that's like, Brady or Montana. Who would you pick, right? So, I mean.
Right. So it's great questions. All right, let's keep the quarterback. We have one more great quarterback question. If you were the general manager or the owner of a team, would you be willing to pay the price it would take to get Aaron Rodgers as your starting quarterback for next year?
And we're talking about the Jets, right?
Well, it didn't say the Jets necessarily. I was going to make it the Jets for my answer.
Okay. Okay.
So for my answer, we'll just go there then. Yeah, so if you're the general manager of a random football team and your quarterback is Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts or Joe Burrow, no, I'm not paying the big money to bring Aaron Rodgers in at the end of his career. If I'm the Jets, no, I think the better question would be if the Giants, because that's a really good question because they have a quarterback, right? Daniel Jones has proven to be a pretty darn good quarterback. But if I'm the Jets, listen, the Jets need a leader on offense. They need some player who's great, who the team can rally around. They do not have a quarterback. Zach Wilson might be good someday. Mike White might be a good backup who can start sometimes or whatever. But they don't have a quarterback. And this is a league where you need to have a great quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers is on the downside of his career, but he's a leader. He's great. He's one of the best. Hasn't always been able to win the big games. In fact, he's lost a number of big games, even in Green Bay. But if the Jets had a quarterback who was great or very, very, very good, they would instantly be one of the better teams as long as their defense plays like it did this year. So if I'm the Jets, money's not an object. Like, I would move heaven and earth to bring Aaron Rodgers in, and he would be my pick over any of the other guys. And obviously, I don't know a whole lot like you guys do about football, but I've been reading about all the other possibilities. Derek Carr, Lamar. What's his last name? Jackson. This shows you a lifelong educator. I was going to say Lamar Alexander. He was like the Secretary of Education when George Bush was the president. He would be better than some of the Jets, right? So anyway, yeah, if I'm the Jets, without a doubt, I bring Aaron Rodgers in. I would have brought in Tom Brady if he didn't retire. I mean, the Jets need somebody there for the team to go, this is our quarterback. We know he's great. Eliminate all these questions about anything else. Maybe Zach Wilson can then watch Aaron Rodgers being great and learn what it takes. And, there have been instances throughout history. I go to baseball, but I'll give two of them. Joe Girardi was a great Yankee catcher, very good Yankee catcher, if nothing else, who helped the Yankees win a World Series. And then Jorge Posada came up, and the great, or at least the very good old veteran, taught his replacement how to catcher. Better example, Bill Dickey, Hall of Fame catcher, taught Yogi Berra how to play catcher and take over his position. Great players can do that and bring along another player. Maybe Aaron Rodgers could come in and do that in a football sense with Wilson. Listen, I'm going to be the quarterback for 2 years. This is how you become a great quarterback. You have the ability. Obviously, he's in the NFL. He is highly rated by some as far as a skill set, but he doesn't look like he knows how to run a team and be a quarterback who can win. So yes, long answer, quick answer. Long answer, now the quick answer. Aaron Rodgers, yes, I bring him to the Jets. What do you guys think?
I'm going to switch teams. I'm going to talk about the Miami Dolphins. And if I was Miami, and I don't know exactly what type of draft capital I have, I probably don't have much because I got those wide receivers, but I would try to do whatever I could to try to get Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers, I think, would make that team a Super Bowl contender. I think that they have all the other pieces in place, at least on offense. I think that they are, you think about the games against Buffalo, specifically with the Dolphins, Buffalo, and they both were great games in general. Like they played very late in the season on Sunday Night Football, or maybe it was even Thursday Night Football. Saturday night, it could have been, I think it was it was a night game, and then they played in the playoffs. And with a backup quarterback, they really went at Buffalo and made it very, very close. Buffalo had a tough time winning those games. And I think that if you had Aaron Rodgers in either one of those games, you win those games. And if I was Miami, I don't know how difficult it's going to be and what they're going to want in compensation. And it's funny that it's going to be a coach that's probably going to set the market on what Rodgers is going to cost, because Peyton Giving up a first, a second, and a third round pick for a coach is probably going to set the benchmark for what it would start to take to get Aaron Rodgers from Green Bay. So I think, when I think of the team, the Jets, I think Lamar Jackson is better suited for that team because of his youth. I think that the Jets are a younger team, and I think that when you bring somebody who is that much older, that there's a small disconnect. He's already got a disconnect in Green Bay. He's already known as a little bit of a diva and a little bit of a malcontent in the locker room. So I feel that it's maybe better to put him where there are louder voices, because I believe Hill is a louder voice. I believe Waddle is a louder voice. I think that if you don't give him the right receivers, Rodgers the right receivers, he is not going to produce the way you want him to produce. So that's why I believe maybe Miami is a better spot for him, a landing spot for him, than it would be in New York.
All right, Mac, what do you think?
You're muted.
I think
You're mute, Mac.
as
Oh, there you go.
I think as being an owner and a GM, you're going to look at the bottom line, which is the money, right? I mean, if you think about it, Aaron Rodgers is making close to $50 million a year. And if you're going to trade for Aaron Rodgers, you're going to have to pay that. Plus an extension, guys. He's not just going to go there for 1 year. He's going to go there for a few years. So whatever that money is that he's getting now, it may even cost more, as Pag said. So can you afford Aaron Rodgers? Doc wants him there. Jack wants him there. I get it. I mean, he's a great quarterback. But are you willing to give up that amount of money? Are you willing to give up the players that Green Bay would want and draft picks? Because that's what's going to cost to get Aaron Rodgers. Right now, you got a great young team, a great young defense. You have a problem at quarterback. There's a lot of quarterbacks coming up in college that are like Lamar Jackson. They can run and throw the ball. Why don't you just stay young? Why don't you have a young quarterback come up on a rookie salary and see what he can do? Zach Wilson, I think, is gone. They might keep up they may keep the backup. They might. But I would think it'd be a huge mistake to bring in Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets or the Miami Dolphins for that matter. Because again, that salary is just going to be crazy. So, maybe you bring in a Derek Carr. Daniel Jones, I'd hate to see him go to the Jets. Daniel Jones is another a possibility. But again, it's going to cost a lot of money. And you might have to give up some draft picks. Stay young. Stay building. That's what you're there to do. And put together a good program that's going to be good for years.
I think the problem with the Jets is if you're a Jets fan, you've been watching the same, except when they brought in Brett Favre or Vinny Testaverde and Fitzpatrick. It seems to be the same thing with the Jets over and over again. Oh, we got this great young quarterback, Mark Sanchez. Oh, he's terrific. And then he's not. And then you bring in an old guy. And then, we got Sam Darnold. Nobody better. He's great. And then he's not. And then you get Zach Wilson. Oh, he's the best. He's going to be great. And then he's not. It just seems like they need somebody to take over that quarterback position, and they have not for decades been able to figure it out. So, yeah, I don't think they could bring in just some kid out of college and say, this time you're going to be the guy. We really believe in you, and have another couple of years of questionable play. It's just, it's a merry-go-round that just isn't working.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of believe that you need a little bit of leadership. You need a little bit of youth. I think that Rodgers is a wrong fit in New York, at least for the Jets. I think that he's not the right. Although I do believe that the Jets are going to go for it, and I think that that's what makes the Jets the franchise that they are.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
There you go. There, that without it's the same old, same old. Well, this probably is a quick
But
question.
thinking about, and I'm gonna just defray here a little bit. But when you think about trying to change a culture, and I look at Houston, the Houston Texans, and how much of a train wreck they have been as a franchise in general. I think that they made the perfect choice for coach. And I feel that that franchise, it's going to take a couple of years. They got to stick with him. They're not going to be able to change it overnight. It's going to take a couple of years. They need to give him 3 years at least to be able to change it. But I think D'Amico Ryans a choice for them to coach that team. And you're going to see a change in culture and a change in attitude. The change in attitude may happen automatically, but they don't have the players. They don't have the talent on that team. But you're going to see a change in the way that this team and this organization is run. And I think that's yesterday with the hiring of that coach.
I agree with that.
Great stuff. That's the reason. If I were the Jets, I would just stick with Saleh. Again, they've had a coaching turnaround every couple of years. That doesn't help a franchise. You have a different idea, different way to look, different way you draft, and all of a sudden 2 years later, you bring in another guy. So maybe the jury's out on Robert Saleh. Maybe he's a good coach. Maybe he's not a good coach, but that's who you put your faith in. I think they have to stick with him for a long period. I wouldn't make next year his last year already. It's his third year. You got to stick with him and say, build a program. We had faith in you to build a program, and this takes time. And they did take a step forward this year. So, yeah, I'd stick with him. This is probably a quick question. Probably doesn't have to take very long, and then we can go to our first commercial break. Tom Brady set, I think at last count, 14,272,813 different NFL records for quarterbacks. Maybe I'm exaggerating just a little bit. Will Tom Brady's quarterback records be broken? What do you think?
I think it depends on a lot of things. First, health. Can a quarterback last as long as Tom Brady has? The way the rules are, it's possible. But you look at what happened in San Francisco. They had 3 quarterbacks injured in the last 3 years. It's a violent game. So you're gonna have to find a quarterback, maybe a Burrows, maybe a Mahomes, because those would be the 2 I think that would have a chance at his records that are durable, and they are. They can play hurt. They come back from injury quick, and I think that they'll be there for a long time if nothing else happens to them. Second, of course, is the team you're on. Is the team going to be in the post game? Are they going to be in the playoffs? Because to get all those yards, you can't just do it in the regular season. This counts everything. This counts the whole career, all the games they're in. So those teams would have to be in the playoffs all the time. You would have to, again, as we talked about before, it depends on the players around them. Are the key players going to be with them for a while? When they draft, do they draft smart? Can they pick up good free agents? Jalen Hurts right now, I mean, he's in a great position because he's got a great GM, a fantastic owner who's going to make sure that Jalen Hurts gets the weapons he needs. And it looks like the Eagles are going to be good for a long time. So Jalen Hurts has a chance to break Tom Brady's records. And we see today in all sports, LeBron James is catching Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And hockey right now, they just went by, Gretzky's record. So it's possible that this can happen, but they got to stay healthy and they have to be on the right team.
I think records are meant to be broken, and it's only a matter of time. Is it somebody that we see right now that's able to break these records? Is it somebody we don't see? Is it somebody who comes into this league and makes the type of marks that Tom Brady did. I mean, nobody saw Tom Brady doing the things that we did, that he was able to do. When you think back to that first Super Bowl that he won, and you think back, I vividly remember the picture of him super excited and then looking at Drew Bledsoe, who felt that that was his Super Bowl. Not Drew. Yeah, it was Drew Bledsoe, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Drew Bledsoe that thought that was his Super Bowl, and that he wasn't as excited as Tom was. Tom was like, and you saw Drew just angry, almost angry that Tom Brady won his Super Bowl. And at that time, we never would have thought that Tom Brady was going to lead his team to 9 more Super Bowls after that, winning 6 more. He's got more rings than every franchise. That's a feat, and he's been to more championship games than, I think just about every franchise, other than the Patriots, because the Patriots have been, to a couple of championship games on him. You know what I mean? So, but I mean, think about that. Just but again, records are meant to be broken, and
Yeah,
somebody will do it eventually.
I agree.
Yeah.
There was a baseball player named Babe Ruth who, when he retired, he had over 700 home runs. The next closest guy had like 300. I think it was Lou Gehrig at the time. And eventually Hank Aaron came along, and eventually Barry Bonds came along. I think it'll be a long time, because it has to be a long time. If it's not Patrick Mahomes, who seems to be on that same type of trajectory, in a good team with a good system, with a good coach, a lot of weapons around him, smart organization, that he could be the next Tom Brady. Joe Burrow might be able to be the next Tom Brady, but he's got to get over that hump. He's got to start winning some of these, like the Super Bowl. And for whatever reason, and I didn't get into this, but as I recall from last year's Super Bowl, there were some questionable calls. And I'm not saying the games are fixed or anything like this. I'm just saying Cincinnati's had really bad luck. And then last week, I was game because that one I taped him, did watch. Didn't know how it was going to come out. They're just strange calls that seem to happen when Cincinnati's playing football games. And like fourth down. No, it wasn't fourth down. We called the play dead. We did? What? Who? When? Where? How did that happen? It just seemed to, and that late
That was
hit,
a real call. That was a real
I
call.
understand, but it just
I
seems, it just like these crazy things happen when they play. The late hit, I understand he hit him. He was out of bounds. He was but he was coming at him 900 miles an hour. And then the thing becomes a chip shot. Maybe it's just some teams have bad luck. Again, I'm not attributing it to anything. I'm just saying, like, Cincinnati hasn't been able to get to that next step because things just seem to happen for them. But besides those guys, of the players we have today, probably none of them at this point look like to be the guy who's going to break Tom Brady's record. But I think Pag said it best. We might not even know who that guy is. That guy might be playing high school ball right now. He might not even be born yet. But of course,
well, and the first person that comes to mind, and it sounds so ridiculous. There has been some video, and I think he is playing in high school, that he's about to go to college, who is an ambidextrous quarterback.
Oh.
He is able to throw both left and right-handed, and that's something that's very intriguing in terms of that. So he out both ways. He could roll and throw the ball with some accuracy and some strength and some distance. And it's like, when you think about that one pitcher who was able to determine he could pitch with both hands, and that he has to declare first, because when he's going up against somebody who's a switch hitter, that he can't switch in between pitches. He's got to, once you start pitching left-handed, you have to complete pitching left-handed. You can't switch to right-handed. And that was the same thing, because the pitcher's got to declare first so that the batter can declare next. And it's interesting, but in football, you don't have to do that. You're going to be able to do something like that. So is that guy going to make it to the NFL? I don't know that answer, but It's a very intriguing thought process, and it might be something very unique like that that would be what causes that jump. I'm interested to see how Patrick Mahomes does after Andy Reid. That is going to be a very big question because he's had Andy Reid his entire career, and Andy Reid has been able to bring him. They've been to what, 5 straight AFC Championship games. They have gone to 3 now. This will be their 3rd Super Bowl in 5 years, and that was all with Andy Reid. If Andy Reid isn't here next year and they have to pick another coach, that's a unique type of situation that Patrick Mahomes has never had to deal with. He's always had in college, he had the same coach. In the pros, he's had the same coach. In high school, he had the same coach. He's never had that type of transition. And that's an adversity. And how is he going to deal with that type of adversity? It's going to be very interesting to see how that works. And that's what Tom Brady never had to deal with either. Tom Brady always had Belichick until he went to Tampa Bay. And there he just happened to have Bruce Arians, you know what I mean, who was very similar to the way that Belichick coached.
A few things, guys, I think we got to consider too. One, the NFL wants to add more teams. They want to grow. So you're going to have more games there. I don't know I don't know how they're going to do this as far as, they're already 18 weeks in the NFL plus some other, plus the playoffs. But they want to add more teams to the schedule if they do get these new teams in. And, for instance, Jim Brown, right? Jim Brown, to me, is still the greatest running back of all time. He played when there was only 10 or 12 games. Now
that's a fair point. Yep.
There's 17, at least 17 games plus the postseason. So, so are the records real or not? That's another question. Is that a real record? If I was to pick somebody, and this is just my opinion, that could break Tom Brady's records, that's down in high school, just went into college, might be Arch Manning. Comes from a quarterback family, knowledgeable, fast, throws the ball. He's got it all. So if there's somebody down there that might have a chance in him, it might be him.
That's great stuff.
Right. As looking
Who's
ahead.
his dad?
Yeah, obviously we don't know.
Arch Manning. Who's his dad? Is his dad Peyton Manning?
No,
his dad's the other Manning.
Yeah, the wide receiver.
I don't know what his Fred Manning.
Yeah,
I don't know
the non-quarterback guy. Okay, interesting.
Right.
That would be the last.
He was the wide receiver because they both had to throw to somebody.
Right. Right.
It would be the last Manning versus Brady contest. That'd be kind of fun. That's good stuff. All right, we're gonna take a break here. I'm gonna call an audible on the other side of this because Pags made me think of something about the batter and the pitcher having to declare first. And I just want to know your opinion on this. I'll make my opinion first, but who should have to declare first, the pitcher or the batter? That's a good question. If there was an ambidextrous pitcher who was actually really good and et cetera, et cetera. But let's go to some commercials and give everybody a break. And we'll be back here in about 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. Thanks, everybody. We'll be right back.
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or a Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
Hey, you haven't ordered Roy White's new book yet? The Great Yankee Roy White? Ian O'Connor, 4-time New York bestselling author, says that this book is fantastic. He says Paul Semendinger, that's me, does a masterful job capturing the essence of the great left fielder. This is a must-read about the most underrated Yankee of all time. From Compton to the Bronx, comes out on April 11th. This is a book that you want to get. You can pre-order it at any bookseller right now. From Compton to the Bronx, the story of the great Roy White. And it wouldn't have happened without Mac.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, guess any.
You know, one of the best things about being an ex-big leaguer is getting freebies to the game. Call the front office, bingo. And once these fans recognize me, I probably won't even have to pay for my light beer from Miller. Down it, I love them. These fans know I drink light because it's less filling and it tastes great. Good seats, huh?
You're in the wrong seat, buddy. Come on.
Oh, I must be in the front row.
Come on.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer and less.
Good seats, hey, buddy. He missed the tag. He missed the tag.
My baloney has a first name. It's O-S-C-A-R. My baloney has a second name. It's M-A-Y-E-R. Oh, I love to eat it every day. And if you ask me why, I'll say, 'cause Oscar Mayer has a way with B-O-L-O-G-N-A.
Oscar Mayer, the first name in Bologna.
How's that?
Probably pretty good, but let's do an advertisement for my other book, The Least Among Them, my other sports book. The Ultimate Insider Book, says the Yankee expert Marty Appel. This book has won numerous awards. It's about the 29 players whose entire career was just one game as a Yankee. And then there's a lot of other great Yankee stories throughout. If you haven't read The Least Among Them yet, oh my goodness, it's time. Let's go to one or two more commercials. We can't go through the commercials without seeing this one, my favorite commercial of all time.
Please, take them out. Mr. Green? Mr. Green?
Yeah.
You need any help? I just want you to know, I think you're the best ever.
Yeah, sure.
Want my Coke? It's okay, you can have it.
No.
Really, you can have it.
Okay.
A Coke and a smile makes me feel good. Makes me feel nice. Be around. That's the way it should be. I like to see.
Hey, kid.
The whole world is smiling with me. Coca-Cola as life. Have a Coke and
Thanks, Mean Joe.
smile.
All right, Pags, let's set this thing up here. There have been two, I believe, major league pitchers who are ambidextrous, who could actually throw well enough with both hands. Pat Venditti, who came up through the Yankee system, I believe he played a little bit with the A's. And then there was a guy named Greg Harris. There were two Greg Harrises, but one of them was ambidextrous. And I think it was when Greg Harris came up, I think it was in the late 80s or early 90s when he said he was going to try going from either way, that he would go lefty or right. And that's where this whole idea came, that the pitcher has to declare first Now, here's my thought here, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, and you disagree, or you might say, you're so brilliant, Paul, that of course I agree with you, but we'll see. Switch hitters are a rare breed, obviously, but there's a lot more switch hitters than switch pitchers. There's only 2 switch pitchers we've ever heard of who've ever made it to the major leagues. Don't you think if somebody has that ability to be able to do something that terrific, that unique, that the baseball rule makers should have given the pitcher the advantage? The batter has to say, this is the way I'd rather bat. And then you let the pitcher go with the hand that can get him out better. Why should the batter get the advantage there to be able to hit against the pitcher pitching from his weaker side so the batter can bat from his better side? It just doesn't make any sense. What do you think?
So I believe the reason why this occurs specifically is because the pitcher's got to change gloves. So there would have to be.
I think Greg Harris had a glove that allowed him to pitch with either hand. He just had to put it on the other hand. It was specially made.
Okay, so that's because the pitcher that was recent, did not. He had to switch gloves. And that's because he didn't have that specially made glove. So I believe that you would need to have that specially made glove to make that all work properly. And I would kind of agree with you. I feel that if you have the ability to pitch with either hand, that you should be able to do that. Because you could think about it the other way. Maybe you don't even need to wear a glove. You could just, now you're losing the field. Well, you know what I mean? You don't want to have one come right back at you, no glove to be able to touch that. But I mean, again, the same situation is that it's, I think I agree with you that if you have that type of ability, that you should be permitted to use it. That being said, baseball doesn't allow it.
Yeah, no, it's silly. What do you think, Mac?
I really kind of agree with both of you in a way. I think that, it's all built around pitching today. And you want to get hitting back involved in the game more. You want more scoring lists. That's what they say they want. So I think the batter should be able to, be able to bat from his best side. A question for both of you: has there ever been a position player that was ambidextrous that could throw and catch with either hand? Has there been a first baseman or a catcher that ever been like that?
I've never seen that. There might be some. I think the Yankees, what's his name? Anthony Siegel. I'm not getting his name right. Siegler. They drafted him a couple years ago as a catcher, and he's ambidextrous. Okay. But I don't think there's ever been a time when you've had a lefty catcher. I mean, there has been. Mike Squires played for the White Sox in the early 80s. He caught for a minute or two. There was a guy who played in the 50s, I think, on the Boston Braves, who might have been a left-handed catcher, something like that. But for the most part, I don't see where the advantage would be, right? Like, if you're a shortstop, you have to be a righty. And if you're a first baseman, it's better to be a lefty. And if you're a catcher, you throw right-handed. So, what would be the advantage of being an ambidextrous outfielder? There's great left-handed throwing outfielders and great right-handed throwing outfielders.
Right. So, But other than that, I agree with what you're both saying as far as pitching.
Yeah, I just think the pitcher should be given. I'm going to look into this more. I think you give the pitcher the advantage there, right? Like, you could throw lefty, go up there, bat lefty, and try to hit my best stuff. I mean, isn't that what competition's all about too? You don't say like, all right, tell you what, put one hand behind your back and we'll box, right? Like,
so,
no,
but wouldn't
let's go at it.
But again, wouldn't see at that point, they make them have to declare. That's the problem. They have to declare. So if if the batter declares left-handed and then he switches to the right hand, the batter should then be able to declare. Like, if he's an ambidextrous batter, and you're going up against an ambidextrous pitcher, and he wants to switch switch hands, the batter should be able to switch sides of the plate too.
I get the idea, but it's got to stop somewhere, right? And so I say it stops with the pitcher. The batter declares, You're a better right-handed hitter? Go up there right-handed. Hit my right-handed pitching. Give me your best. I'll give you my best.
I just got some information that there was 4 pitchers that could pitch lefty and righty. Let me see if I can read this here. So I get it bigger. Okay. 19th century throne. Tony Mullane in 1882.
I remember watching him pitch. He was amazing.
Elton Chamberlain in 1988. Larry Conkerman in 1884. And George Wheeler, who were all
He played for the Blue Sox, didn't he?
Yeah, he played for the Yellow Jackets. There you go. So anyway, there have been 4 in the history of major leagues that have done that.
Well, and I'm just thinking about this most recent one. You know, like the most recent guy who was, I believe it was last year or the year before, where they actually had a situation where he wanted to pitch right-handed, so he was going up against him right-handed. He looked at the card. He saw, oh, no, he's going to be better to face him left-handed. So he wanted to switch it up, you know, and they, you know, the umpire then got involved. It's like, okay, this has become taking too long. So, you know, we make a declaration, and then both the players do it. So the pitcher's got to declare first, as the rule states, and then the batter gets to declare after. So, and there was a rule set for this specifically because they envisioned that at one point there's going to be somebody who's going to be able to throw both hands.
I think Doc already mentioned Venditti, right? That
yes,
he could throw
Venditti and Greg Harris. Yep.
Right.
All right, so let's move on. Here's a great question. Super Bowl's next week. What's the bigger event, the World Cup or the Super Bowl?
Super Bowl, hands down. Reason being, one game over. When you look at the biggest, the most watched events, the most watched television programs of all time, NFL has all 10. And they're not all Super Bowls even. You know, they're not all. I think that there's like 8 of the 10 or 7 of the 10 are Super Bowls, and then the other 3 are like big games. Maybe even like championships. There might be playoffs. I'm not even sure. But I mean, when you look at all 10, and I think of the largest, you know, even if Team USA was in the World Cup final against a team like a hated team like France, like, and that was the World Cup where you have everybody in the US and everybody almost around the world who don't like France playing, you would not get the same viewership as you would for a Super Bowl.
You know, I think that when it comes to the World Cup versus the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl by far, I agree with you, Bags, is the most watched event of the two, because it is that one game. But I think that we think about it as the United States versus the world, kind of, right? You know, football is growing, but it's nowhere as big as soccer, where you can just pick up a ball and kick it through, 2 trash cans and you have a soccer game. It doesn't cost hardly anything to play soccer. So a lot of poor countries, don't even watch the Super Bowl because they don't have TVs or they don't have the capability of watching the Super Bowl. So I think if you're going to say what is more popular, the Super Bowl definitely is, but soccer in these smaller countries is huge. So I think it becomes a question of the United States versus the world in this.
All right, internationally, yes, the biggest event is the World Cup. In the United States, by far, it's the Super Bowl. But Pags made me look something up. The highest rated, most watched broadcasts in the history of American TV. The number one event, according to this Wikipedia article, the number one event was not a Super Bowl. I'm going to quiz you each. Do you think you can figure out the most number one event on most watched broadcasts, the biggest TV event in the history of our country? I'll give you a hint.
I have MASH.
That's a good guess.
Yep.
I'm going to give you a better hint.
I'm going to say it's Who Shot JR in Dallas.
Good guess. That's a great one. All right. The first
and then
one.
the other one would
most
be Luke
watched
and
event-
Laura's wedding. Like it sounds ridiculous, but I
Wait,
remember
wait.
watching that.
Wait a minute. I think it's a wedding. I think it's Princess Diana's wedding, right?
All right, here you go. The first one didn't even take place in this world.
The moon landing.
The moon.
Yes. So that's Apollo 11, the moon landing. Then number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, I believe, are all Super Bowls. The next highest event is a political event. And this person was involved indirectly with both of those with the only other non-football event. This happened on the 8th of August, 1974. I'll just tell you what it was to move this along. Richard Nixon's resignation speech is the next highest viewed event. Of course, he was the president when the moon landing and when the moon landing took place. Then 2 more Super Bowls, then MASH, the final episode, then 2 Super Bowls, Roots, a TV show called The Day After. I kind of remember that. Then 3 more Super Bowls, The Police Pursuit of O.J. Simpson.
Okay.
Then 6 more Super Bowls. Then Muhammad Ali versus Leon Spinks. Then another Super Bowl. And then the Disneyland grand opening. I'm sure that's all prorated. I don't know what the statistics are behind that, but obviously based upon viewers and how many TVs there were and things like that. But that's kind of interesting. The only TV show there was MASH.
I'm surprised Ali Frazier won the Fight of Century's not in there. That's wild.
It might have been on closed circuit or something like that. I'm not sure.
That's true.
Probably.
That's true.
All right, so let's get back to the debate here. Let's go
A little
to
audible since I'm with a baseball, guy here. I was looking at the odds to win the World Series.
Okay.
And the Phillies aren't in the top 8. And my question to you is, as everything sits right now, who would be the top? Who do you expect to be the final 4 in both the AL and the NL?
Wow. All right, you got to give me a moment here. I think the easy answer for the American League, I think the best team in the American League right now is the Astros. I think that's easy. So Houston will be there. That would be my early guess. I haven't even looked at any of this kind of stuff.
They're ranked number 1. They actually have I think that they were a plus 550 to win it all.
Okay. I would then say for the National League, my gut would say the Dodgers.
They are, I believe, like 7th on the list.
Wow.
San Francisco.
My heart wants to say the
No.
Yankees.
Not on the list. The Yankees are number 2 on the list at a plus 600.
All right. I a lot of people are high on the Yankees, and we have to be high on the Yankees. They have a lot of good things. The deeper I look at the Yankees, and maybe it's just because I'm a pessimistic Yankee fan who's optimistic at the same time, but who's always worried that there's reasons that they're not going to be good. There's a lot of question marks around this team. If Aaron Judge isn't like superhuman, there's a lot of question marks around this team. They have a great starting pitching. We'll talk about that in a minute. Who's the other? Who's the next? Is it the Braves? Is it the Mets? Who are they saying
The
is the
Mets,
top 5?
the last I saw, it went Houston, Yankees, Mets, Seattle, the Braves.
Wow.
Interesting.
That was
I
the
don't
top
think
5.
Seattle's that good. And then the Braves. I
Then
can
it
see
went
the
San
Braves and
Diego,
the Mets.
then it went San Diego, then LA, and then it was another AL team. And I'm trying to remember who that AL. It may have been the Rangers. Because of the pickups they made, or
DeGrom
they,
and all that.
it was something. It was something. it would like surprised me. It was like, that's the 8th team. You know what I mean? Like it, but the Phillies were not in the top 8.
Wow.
And I got to imagine that that's done specifically because of Harper being out for the first half of the season. You're not going to be back.
Well,
until
without
about
Bryce
July.
Harper, I mean, but the way the playoffs are,
last year, without Harper, we were, I think it was 8 games over 500, which is a big deal in the grand scheme of things. You know, being without Harper and being 8 games over 500. I mean, and then getting back there and then getting another 8 games over 500. If you're 16 games over 500 in baseball, you're in the playoffs now. Just about, or really close to it.
Yeah, no doubt. And with the expanded playoffs. And so if you have Harper come back in the second half, then, he's proven to be a terrific postseason player, and he's dynamic and he's exciting. So anything can happen. So great question. So that's actually a great segue to the question that we have here. Which MLB team has a better plan for success right now? Is it the Yankees? Is it the Mets? Or is it the Phillies?
I like the Phillies. I think that the Mets are in trouble. I think the Mets are going to Mets it up. And that's I've felt that way when they got Verlander, and Verlander is not great at pitching in the postseason. I know that he won the World Series game, but he's not great at pitching in the postseason. In fact, he's got an ERA of 6+ in the postseason. And I think that he's a great regular season pitcher, and I think that he gets worn out, and I think that they are old. That team is old, and that's going to be a problem. That's going to come back to haunt them. I think that the Braves are a better team than the Mets. And even though that they have these great players on that team, I think that the Braves are the better team out of the two of them. Now, I think, if I'm going to call my shot here, I think that the Braves are going to win the division because the Phillies they don't have Harper to start it off. And I think that they still do have a couple of holes in their bullpen. But I think that when it comes down to it, the Phillies are going to get hot at the right time like they did this time. That this team is built for postseason play, not regular season play. Just my opinion. Yankees, I feel like that they needed to make sure they got to stop the bats of Houston. That's what they tried to do. That was their plan. And we'll see if that works. That great pitching beats great hitting.
It's interesting. You say the Phillies are built for the postseason. I see the Yankees as built for the regular season. And I think that's what we've seen play out for all these years, right? The Yankees are good enough, especially when you talk about the rest of the league. There's not a whole lot of good teams out there. So I think the Yankees will be good enough to make it to the playoffs. The problem has been that's where the Yankees seem to fall every year since 2009. They get in most years, except for a couple of years like 13, 14, 15, 16. But since then, they're in every year, and they just can't seem to put it together in the playoffs. Their strategy, their hitters, and it's actually really, and it hasn't really been bad pitching. It's really been bad hitting.
Yeah.
They haven't been able to get their hitting to come around in the playoffs. I think the Yankees have a quality team, but I think it's one of these teams. I think the Mets are actually better. And I know as a Yankee fan, I'm probably not allowed to say that. I know a lot of people are down on the Mets, but the thing with the Mets, everybody says they're going to Mets it up and this and that. And that's absolutely true. That's always been their history. But the difference is they have an owner now who's not going to let that happen. I don't think if the Mets start being bad, I think he's going to go, all right, what do I have to do? I'll go get it. And maybe not for this year. Maybe they lose a year, but they still got Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil. They've got a lot of good ball players all over that team. And they've got, really good pitching, and I think they've got a great manager, even though he has never won a World Series in Buck Showalter. But here's my problem with the Yankees. I think in some ways they look like a paper tiger, where you say like Harrison Bader, top 10 center fielder. They're great, except he's never played in 140 games in a year, ever. That means he's, based on his career, he's going to miss 20, 30 games or 40 games. Who plays center field if Harrison Bader's not there? And I know everybody go, well, Judge can do it. He did it last year. I just don't see the Yankees putting Aaron Judge in center field for any long amount of time. And the reason I say that is they just invested $40 million in him. It's different than last year when he might have been a free agent, right? Like it's different when you're now $360 million into your right fielder. Say, yeah, let's just put him out in center field. And because the offense is so based on Aaron Judge, that if he's not in the lineup, who else is hitting? You look at but down the lineup, who else is hitting? Maybe Anthony Rizzo, Giancarlo Stanton hasn't hit the last number of years. Gleyber Torres, Josh Donaldson. I mean, where are the other hitters in the lineup? So I don't think the Yankees can afford to put Judge in center field and risk him getting hurt or wearing down. So then who plays center field? Aaron Hicks, Estevan Florial, who they've never really believed in. So they look good. You know, oh, they got this great catcher, Jose Trevino. He was the Platinum Glove winner, the greatest defensive guy. Okay. He didn't basically hit the second half of the year. Who's going to hit in the catcher position? The Yankees don't have a catcher that can hit. Josh Donaldson's 87 years old at third. They don't seem to want to play the young kids at shortstop. Maybe they will. But I see a lot of weaknesses there. So I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful. But I'm also concerned that the team isn't quite as good as everybody seems to think they are. So out of those three, the Mets probably are built to win this year.
Well, Doc, I think I would have to go with the Yankees. Just pitching, great pitching beats great hitting. And I think the Yankees got one of the best pitching staffs in the league right now.
They do, no doubt.
And as far as the offense goes, I mean, they did sign Gleyber Torres to a one-year contract. I think he's going to be better. I think Rizzo, again, as you said. I'm trying to think of the utility player there that
LeMahieu. I didn't mention him. He's very good.
And he could hit 30. He hits for power. He goes the other way. Aaron Judge is always a concern with his injuries. So they're going to have to pick up the hitting if Judge does get hurt, because I don't know if they can win without him, as shown in the playoffs. You know, he couldn't hit, and the Yankees they were terrible. So I think because of the Yankees pitching, what they did this year, I think they got the best plan. I think Philadelphia is younger than both teams right now. They got a few old players, but they're younger, and I think in a few years they're going to be unbelievable. I think they win that division. The Mets, you know, you talk about their owner, and he's willing to do a lot of stuff and bring in players. But eventually, he's got to pay all them contracts. He's got to reinvest in the team to get it better. I think the Mets are going to be bad for a while. I agree with Pags with that.
All right, interesting stuff. That baseball's coming. If you live in the Northeast right now, I think the temperature outside is -4 million. We were getting our first real cold spell. It is brutal outside, and what that does is that makes us long for the spring, long for the summer. Spring training is just a couple of weeks away. It's going to be awesome. And, you know, when you start talking baseball, that's great. But since it's so cold outside, you also like to talk about those sports that take place inside. And our penultimate question for today: is LeBron the greatest basketball player of all time? What do you think?
I would say that he is. Michael Jordan, of course, I think is the greatest playoff / championship player of all time. I think that there's no doubt about that. 6 championships, and he carried that team with the help of Scottie Pippen through those championships. LeBron James has been around a long time. Again, we talk about somebody being able to play that long, to endure that type of 80-game schedule that he does, and he doesn't take a lot of time off, guys, like a lot of players. He plays quite a bit of time. He really didn't have the teams that other greats did. If you want to look at Larry Bird, if you want to look at Magic Johnson, he had great players around him all the time. And LeBron James really hasn't. He's played with three different teams, I think it is. He's played with Miami, he's played with Cleveland, and now the Lakers, and he's just done it everywhere he's been. And I was a big hater at one time. I hated the guy, but his play has turned my opinion around about him. He's unselfish, and he still can drive to the hoop. He still can make them 3-point shots. He's carried the Lakers this year, guys. There's no doubt about it. He's carried the Lakers on his back this year. So I would say, there's a few guys that might give him a run for his money. Will Chamberlain, Kareem, people like that. But overall, I say LeBron James is the greatest basketball player of all time.
What do you think, Pags?
Again, when we had this conversation a little bit yesterday, I am a firm believer when you start talking about the best of all time, that everybody says there should be only one, and ultimately a list starts with number one. But the truth of the matter is that there's never a way to really prove what guy is better than the other guy. That there's no way to make a one-on-one with any reasonable thought process that says, okay, that the guy who was Michael Jordan in his absolute prime and LeBron James in his absolute prime, and you put them together on a court at one-on-one, who's going to win that game? Well, they're supposed to have four guys around them too, and it becomes a matter of, hey, how do you work that out in the mix too? I think that there's always going to be a different answer depending on who you ask. My thought is that when you talk about the greatest of all, that's a level. That is a level, and it's an elite level. And then there's everybody else, So the next level, there's great, there's elite, then there's greats, and then there's the kind of everybody else. And I feel like, I think like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and Dr. J and those guys are great, And then you have Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and LeBron James in that elite, and then on the other side you actually have like Shaquille O'Neal, and then Bill Russell, and you have to put them separately because their centers are a different breed than the rest of those players. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's a whole different level on this side of the equation. So I feel that when you talk about the greatest to ever play the game and you have that conversation, you must have LeBron James in it. You have to have the argument, and when you talk about, you really could go back and forth with him and Michael Jordan. It could literally be those top two. Kobe Bryant does get sprinkled in the mix there. You know what I mean? So, and I'm not saying that LeBron is better than Kobe. I'm not saying LeBron is better than Michael Jordan. I'm not saying that Kobe was, better than Michael Jordan in any way, shape, or form. I'm saying that level is very small because they were head and shoulders above everybody else. Yep. And that's what makes them. That's what makes them the greatest of all time.
Now, interesting, I'm not a big basketball guy. And so if I'm not the person who can answer the question because I don't have the statistics or the knowledge of the sport like you guys do, and like so many people who love basketball. My gut would be Jordan. But the reason my gut would be Jordan is the same reason that if I asked you or anybody what their favorite TV shows were or their favorite cartoons growing up, they would tell you the ones from their era. oh my goodness, Bugs Bunny was better than Transformers or He-Man or whatever, but no, it wasn't as good as Howdy Doody, right? Because we look back at our youth and we say, like, this guy must have been better. That's the only reason I'd pick Jordan. But as you guys were talking, it's funny because you said basically all the names except for Kobe wasn't on my list. And I'm not separating for centers because I don't know enough about the game to make that argument. But I was thinking, like, if it's not LeBron or Michael Jordan, and it probably is one of those two, but if it's not, it's probably Wilt or Bill Russell. I mean, those I think would be your top 4 basketball players of all time. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But if that's correct, if the top greatest basketball players, for however you want to define it, are Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, LeBron James, and Michael Jordan, then the question I have to ask is who's 5th? And these are the names I came up with. Shaquille O'Neal, which you're saying probably not. Dr. J, which I thought was funny that you brought him up because I just remember him from being a kid. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. How do you think, Phil, am I right with the top 4? And then which is the 5th best?
Ugh.
That's tough, right?
I don't know. I mean, maybe you put Lukic in there right now because
no, not at all. Not at all. I would,
Steph Curry?
As much as I hate to say this, I would probably be Larry Bird for me as the number 5. I just, I hated Larry Bird. Like, I hate Larry Bird very similar to the way I hate Sidney Crosby. And when I say, like, me personally, when I say I hate somebody, that's a huge sign of respect because you have to be a very specific caliber of player. You don't get to be hated by me just because you play on a team. You have to be that guy. And I was, fight between Dr. J and Larry Bird, and I was just as angry about what Larry Bird was doing that day, and I can imagine from all the things that I hear about the trash talking that Larry Bird did, and I can imagine he was just getting under Doc's skin, and just and that's why they had that. That's why he threw a punch. Shut up, and that's it. But he had already scored 40 points on him. You know what I mean? It was a complete annihilation of the Doc that day, and it was it's something that I will never forget. You know what I mean? Like those are the types of things that I think about when when we're talking about the top 5. And I had Allen Iverson. You could almost put Allen Iverson into that mix. Of was he in that number, in that grouping? So I feel that if you're putting those 4 as the number 4, I'd probably say actually I'd probably go Kobe. Actually, now that I think about it, I'd have to go Kobe because I like I said, I put Kobe into that upper echelon. So Kobe is that number 5 for me. But then you're asking me number 6. Number 6 would be Larry Bird.
I'm listening to Peg, and I'm starting to remember things more than I did before. Iverson is a great pick. He willed the 76ers to the championship. I mean, he was a little guy who was taking on almost the whole team at that time. So that's a great guy to bring up. LeBron, he was by himself. I mean, he had no help about Iverson. Not Iverson, Kyrie for that one series. And Wilt had nobody else either. I mean, Wilt pretty much, he was bigger than the other team. He scored that, 100 points. I mean, those 3 guys, I think you would put in that category with each other. That they really had no teammates around them. Even Bird had McHale and Parrish. Dr. J had Moses Malone. Kobe had Shaq for a while. I mean, those 3 guys really stand out. Those 3 guys, Iverson, LeBron, and Wilt, really stand out to me.
Great question. Well, I'm glad I thought of it. All right, so our last question. And again, I haven't been proved wrong yet tonight. Just
Not
for the
yet.
record.
Not yet. Maybe.
and you know what? Nobody's gonna find this videotape 37,000 years from now and say, you know what? He is wrong. Nobody is better than Tom Brady yet. His statistics have held or whatever. So it's all good. These are a lot of these questions we can't be wrong at. So that's why you can say that with confidence, because they're just opinions.
Right.
All right, so this one's a hard question for me because I as I thought about it in so many different ways, it's just I don't have an answer. So here's the question. What's the most difficult sport for a professional athlete to transfer to? We were talking about Jordan. He left basketball, tried to make it in baseball, and didn't. We saw players like Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders play professionally at a high level in baseball and football. Danny Ainge made it to the NBA and Major League Baseball. So you have some players doing this. I don't know if there's ever been like a basketball football player or a hockey football player or anything like that. Maybe because they're all like winter, autumn sports. So the hardest sport to transition to, I think it's just a hard question. Like you could take the greatest athlete of all time. That's a great question. Who is the greatest athlete of all time? Jim Thorpe or Carl Lewis or LT or whoever. I don't think any of those guys would do very well as a baseball catcher. I don't know if they could be a baseball pitcher. Conversely, you could take the greatest pitcher of all time. You could take Roger Clemens or Pedro Martinez or Cy Young or Tom Seaver, whoever you want to pick. I don't think that person knows how to run an offense and could play quarterback. And even if they could, I'm sure they couldn't play defensive tackle. So any of these guys, I don't think could, except Tom Glavine, who was a hockey player. I don't think any of these guys would be able to manage on ice. And I don't think most of them, except maybe like Dave Winfield, who they say was very good at basketball, would be able to hold their own against any NBA player in basketball. So I don't really have a good answer to that. Like, which is the hardest? I think it's so specific to the player and the sport, but I'd love to hear you guys, your answers on this, because it's such an intriguing question.
Hockey, because it requires a whole different skill set that you have to know how to ice skate or you can't even play. You know what I mean? That's end all be all on that. Sure. So that requires a whole different skill set. That's why you don't see many athletes play hockey and another sport. In fact, most people, if they're playing hockey, they're playing hockey. They're not playing any other sport, because then they're always playing hockey. I guess you could play hockey and then switch over to soccer because it's very similar in the techniques. However, you're using a stick in comparison to using your feet, but the movements are similar. The defenses are planned similar. The offenses are planned similar. So it's it's similar in, coaching, but not necessarily similar skill set. That's why I feel like you could see, you do see football players play, and you could see them play basketball, and even golf. I mean, anybody could learn golf. Hockey players are really good at golf because they have a sort of swing set. Baseball players are not as good at golf typically because it's a different swing set. You know what I mean? You just do things a little differently with that. So when I think of trying to go from one to the other, hockey is the one that stands out because you just have to have a whole different skill set that not many people will have as an athlete.
I just got the answer that none of you have. I just thought of it. The one sport none of these players would be good at. I just came up with it.
Curling.
Harness racing. A thoroughbred racing, right? Because all those guys are little. You can't put a great physically big giant guy.
I don't know. Allen Iverson might be a really good harness racer.
Yeah, he might have been. He might
maybe.
have been.
I don't know. What do you think, Mac? What's
well,
the hardest sport?
let me start off by telling you what inspired this question. Our co-host Jack Hirsch wrote an incredible article about Too Tall Jones in his small boxing career. I think he went 6-0, and Jack's a Hall of Fame boxing writer, and he's really cool on our show. When he comes on our show, he's very, very thoughtful and very fluid in what he thinks, and an expert on boxing. So I kind of go with boxing. I think that there's been a lot of players, football. I don't know if a hockey person ever tried to box. I imagine they could because they're tough. I don't know of any baseball players. There's certainly no golfers that tried to box. But Too Tall Jones tried it, and he was limited. And remember, Too Tall Jones was a first-round draft choice for the Dallas Cowboys, an incredible athlete. He had his problems. Ken Norton Jr. was a middle linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers. He tried boxing. Ken Norton was his father. He had his problems. Boxing is a unique sport where you have to condition differently than any other sport. You've got to be quick, you've got to be strong, and you got to be determined. The training is year-round to become a great boxer. Too Tall Jones was a better football player after he had his boxing career because of everything he learned in boxing. So if there was one sport that I think would be a task for any player to do, would be to box, just because of what it takes to become a great boxer. And a lot of great sports players couldn't make it in boxing, guys.
Well, see, but I think that it becomes a matter of the determination of the athlete themselves to want to learn it. That's the difference, because I immediately think of Herschel Walker. And Herschel Walker, although he didn't do boxing, he went MMA, and actually was pretty good at it. You know what I mean? And and then I also think of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was a 5th degree black belt. Now again, it's not boxing, but again, it's the determination to be able to get that skill set, and that's what it takes. Now, the problem is that when you're Ken Norton Jr. and your father was a heavyweight champion at one point, or at least you went for it a few times, and you are a Super Bowl winning player, you have a certain level of greatness that you will automatically expect. So when you switch from one sport to another, you kind of still expect that greatness is just going to follow you, and it doesn't. And the work that you have to double down and triple down on the work that you have to put in to be that type of great. And that's the hard to do that for any player, to be great at those in that way. So that's why I kind of feel that although I know that you're saying with boxing, it requires a whole different skill set and blah, blah, blah. But I think that you could do it. It just takes the mentality to be able to do it. And that's what requires the real strength, not actual strength.
Very well said. That's, one of the guys that come on, John Scully, said you got to be mentally tough. It's more mental than it is physical. Carl Lentz is just going to town.
Yeah. Chris keeps coming up with some pretty good sports. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm thinking back to the thoroughbred racing. Listen, maybe somebody could make the transition to be on the horse or the behind the horse and the little buggy thing. But you know what? Secretariat. There's no way Secretariat could have played football. Secretariat could run an open route. Nobody could catch him. But it's not catching a pass. There's no way that Secretary is getting a base hit against any pitcher, and so I don't know.
It's funny because I watch which is the Kelsey podcast, and they asked a similar question, a different question, but they asked which animal would be best at football. Like if you were to have any animal, living, deceased, extinct.
Oh, well, you got to go with the dinosaur. Then you go with the Tyrannosaurus Rex. He plays offensive line. You're never getting to the quarterback.
But then actually, I know because you would see now. You're saying the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I actually probably want him to play defense. I wouldn't want him to play offensive line because I would have like the big what's it called? The
Brontosaurus or something.
yeah, the Gignotus, you know what I mean? That monster that was, because they're the offensive line. You want like 5 of those guys going up against.
Where are we going?
T-Rex.
I mean, this Doc is out of control. The hippo. There you go. Put the hippo.
But like, if I guess, all right. So go back to like a real, like to not extinct. You know, what I mean, like something like in animals of today. What animal would best be used for a football game? Like, if you could put a team together, what do you think in terms of the positions and everything? Like, you'd want. What animal would you want to be?
I got a great one. First of all, the offensive line you'd have to have a rhino on there, right? Because a rhino is big, he's strong, he's got that horn. I mean, who's gonna even try to? And then your running back would have to be an ostrich. They can run, about 60 miles an hour. Cheetah would be your wide receiver, like the nickname they have on the Miami Dolphin guy there. So he would be your wide receiver. To throw it, I don't know who would throw the football though. I mean, who would throw the football? And Lentz has a great. The giraffe would be great on defense, right? How can you throw it over the giraffe's head? That would be difficult. But anyway, I mean, the elephant. There you go. He could be your tackle. Rhino's your pulling guard. So I still don't know who's going to throw the ball. Who? Maybe a monkey because it has hands. It'd have to be a good sized monkey too. I'm not sure. Kangaroo. What about a kangaroo?
Kangaroos. That's not as we hear.
He would be
our producer in the background.
He would be your kicker, right? I mean, he's got.
Yeah, they can kick pretty good. So it's
all right.
And then
there's a movie, Gus, right? Gus, wasn't it a movie about Gus, the donkey or something like that, and he kicked field goals? That was a Disney movie a long time ago.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. He could be your kickoff guy, right? He's the one that kicks off. So,
all right, great stuff.
This is tremendous.
Yeah, interesting. It's just an interesting thought process. I mean, obviously, like I said, we stole that straight from New Heights. That question came straight from New Heights. So they did that, and they were talking about gorillas and elephants and things like that. And it's I mean, I guess you could say a gorilla or an orangutan. Somebody who's got that long arm to be able to kind of get it up above everybody, and So I think of you use a bird to be able to play safety, to be able to kind of get there quickly and knock something down. Like you got to get like an eagle or.
Would a mouse be involved in this at all? Or I mean,
he was too big. The mouse is always getting hurt.
Yeah, that's true.
No. Like if you listen, if you're the team and the other team has the defensive line or the offensive line of elephants.
Good
on the
point.
other side, you put the mouse, right? The elephant's afraid of the mouse. They'll just run, and the mouse can come get the quarterback.
I don't think
that's a fallacy, right? That's a fallacy.
Yeah, I understand, but I think like we got Speedy Gonzalez being mentioned here, Jerry Mouse,
right.
So I think we've gone in a totally different direction here. And we're just about at the top of the hour. Do you guys have any other great sports things to talk about, or should we wrap this up before we start doing Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote? And
so just because I probably am not going to see you next week there, Doc, do you have a pick for the Super Bowl?
I'm going to go Chiefs, just because that's who I'm going to root for. I root for people. I'm a big Brady fan, as you know. He's now retired, and so I'm hoping that Patrick Mahomes becomes the next Brady and he gets 1 million Super Bowls. So that's where I'll go. I don't have any reason to think they're going to beat the Eagles, but that'll be my pick. I'll say go Chiefs.
All right.
So you're picking them. You don't have like a score idea or anything like that. That's
Tasmanian Devil. We keep getting them. All right, Chiefs 28. No, Chiefs 35. Eagles 30. I'll write it down. 35-30. Chiefs over the Eagles. Now,
couple quick. Go ahead, Doc.
I said I'd never be wrong. I have no idea. That's not a scholarly pick. It's just off the top of my head for fun. So I'm probably wrong on that one.
Couple
So
quick
don't take
things.
that to the bank, is what he's saying.
Right. Couple
Exactly.
quick things for the folks. First of all, thanks for all the comments and everything. We love having you comment on the show, and all the views. That's great. Tomorrow, the big football show with Pags will be there. Jim Jeffcoat, Keith Angle, Robert Butler. We'll be talking football, Super Bowl all day, and then what happened in the championship games again. And we'll be doing more of at their peak. We'll have people like Dan Marino versus Johnny Unitas, stuff like that. That's going to be pretty interesting to talk about with the guys. Also, what a time to be a head coach. Huh? Look at, 7 years. Who knows what Sean Payton's going to make? It's going to be unbelievable. So a great time to be a head coach in the NFL when you're going to start setting records as far as how much money you so that's about it. Remember to tune in tomorrow to the big show, big football show, guys.
Yeah, I will be able to stop in. It's going to be a little bit different for me because I am sending the Eagles off well wishes. So we're going down to the stadium. They're leaving from Lincoln Financial Field, and we're going to go say goodbye to them the best way that Philadelphia knows how, and get them all ready to bring home a ring.
There you go.
I leave on Monday, so I will definitely check in. But I'll definitely check in and all painted up, ready to go. Well, just like it's a Sunday.
All right.
It is a Sunday tomorrow.
It is.
All right, my
It is.
friends, have
Exactly.
yourselves a happy day. Have a great week. And we'll be back like we always are.